sustainable as a viable tool. All right, it's been live stream. From the topic which we agreed on as a team, because we're a team, which is sustainability as a viable tool for climate mitigation. So I couldn't really come up with a particular topic. So I'm just going to talk about it like an overview. So this is what our presentation is going to be about. So we'll be looking at, these are outlined: definition of sustainable energy, green technology, global energy mix, electricity access. I don't know if everyone is hearing me, but my voice can be a bit tiny. So these are like feedback. So like I was talking about, sustainable energy in Africa, example of sustainable energy projects in Africa, benefit of sustainable energy, and challenges to the development and overcoming the challenges, and then we conclude. So I really, like I said, the first one is going to be sustainable energy. I'm going to keep it as brief as possible. I don't want to bore anybody, and I don't want anybody to get tired. So sustainable energy is literally the energy that is produced from renewable energy sources. So we have solar, we have wind, we have biomass, we have geothermal, and these sources can be replenished naturally. They do not produce greenhouse gases, and they contribute to climate change. So in other words, why are we talking about sustainable energy? We're trying to the main cause is to provide energy without detrimenting our future generation, the sources where they can get energy. And this is important because fossil fuel is causing a lot of climate change. We all know how it works. The process is that the fumes, the gases released going to the atmosphere produces greenhouse gases effects, which can cause acid rain. Acid rain can come down and cause a lot of erosion and pollution. We have air pollution, we have water pollution. Now, why is it important? Sustainable energy is important because is essential for climate change, such as coal, oil, gas, are the main primary sources of energy for the world today. However, they produce greenhouse gases when burned, which trap heat in the atmosphere. Sustainable energy can help reduce our reliance on fossil fuel and mitigate climate change. Literally, that's what it is. But it's more than that. So we're trying to produce energy that does not detriment the climate, does not cause any atmospheric changes. However, we're seeing a lot of atmospheric changes now, even in the city I'm in now. We've been having raining, like days we don't call rainy season, it is raining. Days we think it's not going to be hot, it is raining, you know. A lot is changing, just like even in other countries. I'm sure there are a lot of climate change effects. Now, when we talk about sustainable energy, we're also talking about green renewable energy. We're also talking about green technology. So there's a reason why I introduced green technology. Like, green technology is just a broad name that refers to any technology that can be used that is environmental friendly. So any technology that is like in the course of sustainable energy. Sorry, I'm seeing comments. I've not even read it, Seth. Can I zoom the play? Okay, I hope you are seeing the PowerPoint presentation. Are you seeing the PowerPoint presentation now? Hello? Hello?
Yes, we can see it clearly.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's fine. So when I'm talking about green technology, it's just a broad name for any technology that is designed to be environmentally friendly. So we're talking about, so the sources are sun. These are the sources of the renewable energy, which is sun, wind, water, heat from underground, which is, I didn't talk about that in our own, but we also have ocean wave, which is tidal. We have geothermal, I know. So the technology in which these sources are used to produce energy are called green technology. So they are technology that are used to reduce pollution, conserve energy. Now, the relationship between green technology and sustainable energy is closely intertwined. Green technology helps to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and mitigate climate change. Sustainable energy can help to power this technology and make them more affordable and accessible. So now, before I talk about anything else, I just want us to take a look at the current energy mix, the global energy mix in the world. So we're talking about sustainable energy and all. So how far has it gone? If you look at this global energy mix, you'll see that sustainable energy accounts for 14 to 19% currently of the total energy mix. And you see, largely, we are relying on natural gas, oil, and coal. So we still have a long way to go. Like sustainable energy is just a little percentage of the global energy mix. And by 2030, the goal is that we should have at least 27%. But I think we still have like 7 years to go. So it's doable. I think it's doable. So and sustainable energy has, is growing. It's growing steadily. So I think it's to achieve that target is quite doable. I don't know what you think, but if anybody has a comment, you can chip in. I know. So this is our energy mix currently now. Our next presentation, our next slide is going to talk about electricity assets. So globally, about 790 million people still live without electricity. That's a huge number, a pretty huge number. So we still have hundreds of millions of people living without any form, without electricity. And we still have another hundreds of millions living without insufficient, unreliable, and unaffordable technology. And the last aim of SDG 7 is to provide affordable and clean energy. So universal access to affordable, clean, and modern energy service by 2020 is a provide for improving the living condition and working condition of the currently energy deprived population. So you see, we still have a long way to go, but we are moving. Now, so in Africa alone, so out of that 790 people that don't have electricity, 580 million people in Africa lacks electricity. That's like a huge chunk of the percentage of people without electricity. So you can see that people without electricity are mostly in Africa. So we predominantly rely on fossil fuel for energy production. We have limited access to electricity, especially in rural areas. So electrification in Africa has been a significant focus for international development efforts, and progress has been made in increasing access to electricity in many African countries. So there are lots of investment. We have things like green bonds. We have things like sustainable green bonds. Yeah, green bonds is one of the it is the infamous bond for investing in sustainability. So we have people, international firms, international organizations trying to invest in Africa so that we can, see how we can grow this. And this costs a lot of money. I remember reading an article from UN, and it says about $300 trillion is needed in this investment. It's a lot of money. So you see that there's a particular talk on sustainable finance, which is how we're going to finance this project and all. So that's there. But now I want to show you guys like few main projects that has been done in Africa on sustainability. So this is one of like the most popular project that has been done in Africa. It is I don't know if I'm pronouncing it well, the Lake Tokona wind power project. Is estimated to produce about 310 megawatts of electricity. It's a wind farm located in Kenya, literally the largest wind farm and the largest single private sector investment. That's like we're talking, like I said earlier, financing sustainable projects. Project is located in Marsabit County, approximately this distance. So you can see that this is one of the major projects. I don't know if you can see how many wind farms, how many windmills are there. I personally, I feel like this is an amazing sustainable. I don't know. I'm just throwing this out. It's an amazing wind power project. But I'm just trying to play the devil advocate. It took a lot of land mass to get this working. So in as much as we're trying to produce clean energy, I feel like the downside to it is that we are also surrendering our land. And also, remember, we also need this land for biodiversity, for animals, for the natural habitat, and also we are literally sacrificing a huge landmass for a lot of sustainable energy projects. And honestly, I think a lot of research has to go back. We have to go back and research to see how we can reduce the use of landmass. Apart from the wind power project, we also have solar farms in some major places, and they take a huge chunk of land, to get them running so that they can produce electricity. I don't know whether you see my point of view, but I'm just playing the devil advocate. And then the next project I'm going to talk about, which is one of my favorite, I love to talk about solar home systems. Why? You don't need land mass for that. You don't need to cut out a particular farm or cut out a particular land and say, you know what, we're going to keep this one for electricity generation, whether it's wind power, whether it's solar, it's not needed. This is just something you can have in your house. You have your solar panel. Like I said, solar is a type of off-grid solar system that provide electricity to home and businesses that are not connected to the grid. They consist of a solar panel, a battery, and an inverter. The solar panel converts sunlight into electricity, which is stored in the battery. The inverter converts the DC electricity from battery into AC electricity, which can be used for power generation. For me, this is my favorite. And I've said it why. We don't need to sacrifice land. I can have this personally in my house and I can use it. And this is one of the most successful projects as far as I'm concerned. Well, you can critique me later, but apart from the major wind project, I think this is the second successful project that has seen a lot of improvement in Africa. Even in Nigeria, we have Lumos Energy. So Lumos Energy is a solar home system, and it's literally being used in Nigeria. I know there was a time we had to go to one state in Nigeria called Nasarawa State, and when we're trying to introduce, with this alone, you can power your small lights, your small fan. It was welcomed. It was really, really welcome. And people were like, when are you guys going to bring this project, this product for us? And also, and in Rwanda, it has played a pivotal role in increasing access to electricity, particularly in rural and off-grid areas. So Rwanda has been a leader in the development of solar systems in Africa. The Rwanda government launched the Solarize Rwanda program, which aimed to power solar homes of 600 households. So now, what are the benefits of sustainable energy? Now, let me go back to this project now. Sorry. One of the major benefits of this Lake Kana project was that it provided thousands of jobs for the citizens. So you see, it's also answering one part of our SDG goals. I can't remember which one is on producing employment. Also, training. People who work there will get to understand how wind power work. And no, if I'm going to cut it, and I'm going to talk about a woman I encountered recently, early this year. So what she did was that our own part of giving back to society was educating women on how to create solar panels locally. As that was amazing. So they take 40 panels that have been used and try to recycle it back for use. And she has been doing that in Abuja, the city I live in, for a while. And I think she has educated about 40 women, and she still wants to do more, which is amazing. And universities invite her to come and show them how to use the solar energy technology. This wind power project can also provide that kind of thing. So you have people who know how to power a wind turbine. You have people who also know the functionality of a wind turbine, and then jobs is created. And when job is created, there's development in that particular area where the job is created. So you have infrastructure coming up, You have the fact that there's light. Before you know, there's market, there's social distribution and all. That's another thing about it. Now, going back to the benefit of sustainable energy. Sustainable energy offers a lot of benefit. Improves public health. Like I said, once you start having development, but improve public health is that the air around you is clean. You don't have anything like wind pollution, acid rain. Because if like a state like Port Harcourt now in Nigeria, it is foggy. It is very foggy. I honestly pity people who stay in Port Harcourt there because there's a lot of drilling happening in that city. So you see there's offshore oil plants, a lot of it, all the big oil companies, the IOCs, they're all in Port Harcourt. So when you go there, you kind of see that it's foggy, kind of have incident of acid rain, the water polluted. That's why you always see that there's always problem in Niger Delta. People coming to say that we can't get clean water, there's no fish and all. Obviously, that can lead to a lot of health issues and all. So people drinking those polluted waters fall sick, we have cancer and all that. And it can help us mitigate climate change and reduce greenhouse gas emissions, just from the example I gave. Also, like I earlier said, it can help create jobs and economic growth. It can help improve air quality and reduce pollution. It also enhance energy security and reduce reliance on fossil fuel, which is quite true. Imagine you have a small solar panel, your SHS, and you don't have light, and you can, in rural areas, really, you can power your lights, you can power your fan. You're as good as good. You can go on and on. You won't even bother is there light or there's no light. And it can be more affordable than fossil fuel in the long term. I think long term really because the cost of producing this technology is very expensive. Like I earlier said, a UN report said about $300 trillion. That is very expensive. If I look at it at the short term, I'd rather go for fossil fuel because then the technology needed to drill for the fossil fuel is already there and all. So why wouldn't I just go for it? But in the long term, it can be cheaper. But government has to play its role. They have to introduce subsidy. They have to introduce tariff. I know there's something like carbon taxes for countries who do not keep to their pollution level. There are taxes for them to give back to the international body and all. So what are the challenges to the deployment of sustainable energy? There are numbers of challenges to deployment of sustainable energy. The upfront cost of renewable energy can be high, very high. These technologies can be high. And imagine an African country trying to say, okay, let's invest in renewables. It's a lot of money. I know right now there's an ongoing project, a hydropower plant project going on in Taraba, and it's literally the Chinese are the ones bringing the investment. It costs a lot, and it's supposed to produce about 3.05 gigawatt. That's a lot of energy. So the overall cost can be expensive. That's why we need investment. So renewable energy source can be intermittent, meaning that they do not always produce electricity when it's very, very true. The solar panel, it stores energy. That energy that is stored is what is being converted to electricity. So lots of times when there's no solar power, there's no solar, you can't store energy. The clouds is always cloudy, it's always raining. What happens there? You can't store energy. So you can't produce energy, you can't produce electricity. There may be opposition to renewable energy from local communities. An example of that is that you come to my community and say, we should give you this huge mass of land to undergo a renewable energy project. The land that a common man is using to farm, they're telling him that he should release it for life. You can get a bit of resistance there. So they need to understand the importance, like I said, and no. So government policy may be supportive of renewable energy, so may not be supportive. So some government policies might not support renewable energy. Like you can see in the Saudis and Iran, they are quite fossil fuel dominated. Like they rely on fossil fuel. So convincing them may not be easy, and they're also part of OPEC. I know. I think even I don't know, anyway, I'm going to check that. I think is it Saudi or Iran actually want to leave OPEC? I'm not sure about that information, but they are really dominant on. They literally rely on fossil fuel. And you come and tell them the renewable energy story, they might buy it, they might not buy it. What are the challenges? There are numbers of ways to overcome challenges to deployment of sustainable energy. It provides financial incentive for the renewable energy project. Like there was a time in UK, I can remember when I was in the UK, and if you're able to save power, a particular tariff is given to you. So you can see some people who have their own solar panels, and you're able to save. They give you tariff, they reduce your energy cost and all. So you develop, there's need to go back to the books and keep looking for ways to make this renewable energy technology more efficient, which is also developing energy storage. So that's one area everybody's looking for out, how to store these energies, and store excess renewable energy when it's not needed. Working with local communities to address concerns about renewable energy. I think that's really, really important, like I said earlier. Adopting government policies that support the development and the deployment of renewable energy. We can see, for example, now in my country, you have the NESG, that's the NESG, the Roundtable on Sustainable. They are doing a lot to promote the renewable energy source. But like I said, it can be very expensive. So you need government policies that will support people to think about it. Like big organization can say, you know what, we can see how to incorporate this and no. In fact, an example might be, I know there's a policy called sustainable banking responsibilities, or sustainable bank responsibility. And it means that your practices have to be sustainable. So banks can ask you, okay, you know what, we can incorporate solar one way or the other. Maybe for non-peak hours. Peak hours are during the day, non-peak hours are during the night. Non-peak hours, just like we do in our offices, we use the solar lights. We use energy efficient lights. They are sensitive and all, or we can power them with the solar, which has stored energy. And also there are ways to incorporate this, and government policies have to support that. So in all I've said, in all my preaching, sustainable energy is a viable tool for climate change mitigation. It offers a number of benefits, including reducing greenhouse gas emission, creating jobs, improving air quality, and enhancing energy security. There are a number of challenges to deployment of sustainable energy, but these challenges can be overcome through financial incentive, technological development, community engagement, and supportive government policy. In this and that, I've said, thank you very much for listening to me. And do you have any question?
That is wonderful presentation from Ms. Adejumoke Aremo.
Thank you.
The floor is open for question.
Okay, Chiemere Ume is raising her hands.
Okay.
Yeah, good evening. His hand. It's not a lady, it's a guy. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your class. I think you really did justice about everything relating to renewable energy, sustainable energy, green energy, and all that. I think my question, because I understand our topic is talking about how this can help mitigate climate change. And if you notice, thank God you're from Nigeria, so I can speak basically on the weather of Nigeria and some other things we might see from the news. And you could see now we are in the raining period, the wet season, and we're having excessive rain. It's as if every year the rain gets worse and worse. Every year, if you notice, our roads are so bad, it's so excessive. Like the time frame compared to when we were little, the time frame we know, oh, rain starts from now to now. But now there are changes in those things. And we've gotten to understand through school and through learning that this emission of these gases have caused damage to our ozone layer. of these greenhouse gases. And if you look at Nigeria, for example, we are mainly dependent. Our source of power mainly, I know there is the hydro. Hydro is a bit renewable, but then we have so many um, power power plants that are everywhere. We are we are not a producing nation, so a lot of us has generators and all that. And if you see the way renewable solar panels are being installed, a lot of people are still trying to buy into that idea. So here comes my question, because a lot of things are happening. Do you feel the government, because this is just my question, government should at least let people generate their means of electricity? Like you said, in UK, there are some houses they generate their own electricity with solar panels and all that. Don't you feel the government should play a role, like help distribute these solar panels? If there are communities, like you mentioned, a place in Kenya where you have several windmills powering about millions of houses. That was what that place was saying. If we have something like this, it reduces these um, different problems we are experiencing from greenhouse gases. I understand the government is trying to make money from fuel and all that because we are oil producers. But these are things that I feel the people need, or the government needs to put in place. International organizations and all that, they need to put these things in place so that we can drop down on the use of fuel. If you notice, when they removed the subsidy, it was as if nobody can go anywhere. If you notice, people, it has reduced the number of cars on the road. I'm not saying it's totally good, but it has its advantages. It has reduced the number of cars on the road. And for power, though for vehicles we've not gotten full electric cars are way expensive and way hard to maintain. But for power, to some extent, we'll be able to bring up renewable ways to control power and electricity. What do you think the government needs to do? This is just my own point. What do you think the government needs to do to reduce dependence on fossil fuels? Because
Okay.
from these steam gases, sorry, from this gas steam plant, from this power plants, and also generators, because we use a lot of generators. What do you think the government needs to do? And that's just my question.
Okay. So I remember I mentioned thank you for that question. That's actually a good question. In fact, that's a Nigerian problem. Even energy they talk in SDG they talk about country specifics. So our country specifics is this problem that we are reliant on fuel, and like I said, the cost of solar bring solar can be very expensive. So now this one I know. I do not know if I think it's a private investment board. I do not know if government is involved. So an example now, Lumos. So what Lumos does is that you pay to own. It's a model. So they provide you with Lumos, you pay a particular amount. You keep paying the amount on a monthly basis. I can't remember how much it is. After I think 3 years, you own your solar home system. Another thing the government is doing presently is that hydropower plants that they are building in Taraba. There's also a mini grid development in the city of Abuja. Although they are mostly located in the north, but I think there will be a way to introduce them in other parts of the country. Yes, government can look for how to incentivize solar panels so that people can find it cheap and affordable. They might maybe enter into like an investment agreement, maybe with a Chinese company. The Chinese are well invested in Nigeria, so they can enter into an agreement with the Chinese and try and see if they can provide solar panels. But also they are building mini grids around the country. My own issue is that when these mini grids will be finished or completed, we don't know. Like the hydropower dam in Taraba, now they are saying that by 2030, that's when it's going to be functioning. That's like 7 years from now. The mini grids, we also don't know when they'll be completed, but we know that they have a lot of mini grid projects around the countries that are coming. I don't know if this answers your question.
Sorry, I don't want to cut you short, but I just feel all these things are just let me say they are just ways to make us feel as if they are doing something. Because the
I
truth is
understand how you feel.
we know from the power company, we know how much the government will make. Forget they made it private. And that was why they built these power plants everywhere. We know how much they get from importing fuel. So I still feel I don't know. I really don't know, but I just feel this particular government we are in, maybe we the young ones, maybe when we take over the helm of authority, then this can change. But this particular government we're in, a lot of these things will still continue. It might reduce, yes. I know the minister of power also said by 2030, that is not possible. It is not, because these people they know how we. It's not like they don't know what they need to do. They know what they need to do. For example, we are complaining about power. We have several countries who make use of nuclear reactors as their means of sort of, and that is a renewable way of generating power. But we do not do that. Apart from, I wouldn't want Nigeria to do that because we will lack the maintenance, so we do not
Yes.
we lack the. But these are things that we should be doing to mitigate this climate issue, because the rain is so excessive. You could hear the news that happened in what do they call it, in not in Libya, where storm caused you. This is from weather. Storm destroyed two dams that killed thousands of people. This is from weather. It is from problems we see. These problems that is already occurring that we are accumulating for ourselves. So I don't know. I know this is just a small phone, but I hope in the future everyone listening will always have this in mind, so that when you see yourself in a position to help in your
Of
own way to
authority.
bring solutions, then you can do what you need to do.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Mm.
Shemiri.
Thank you, Chimere. I appreciate that. I appreciate that suggestion.
Permit
All
me
right.
to
Thank you, everybody,
welcome
for listening to me, for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen to me.
permit me to welcome our second presenter,
All right.
in the person of Mr. Henry. In the person of Mr. Henry Adam. Mr. Henry Pepper Adam is an advocate for global warming and climate change. He is the Director of Corporate Affairs and Energy Management of Spanzes Energy, a renewable energy provision company in Ghana. Mr. Henry, you are highly welcome to this call. You can have your
Thank you very
presentation.
much. I hope you can all hear me, please.
Yes, we can hear you.
I'll be grateful if you allow me or focus more on the presentation I'm going to do than on my face. So I might not show my face. If
No
that's
problem.
okay with all of you. Okay, thank you. So I'd like to begin. My presentation will be focused on unlocking energy sovereignty in Africa. I think the first speaker and I had something similar in mind with our presentation. So we basically took the same trajectory. So that thing she might have already said that I might repeat. But the whole idea is she's looking at sustainable energy. I'm looking at renewable energy. Well, I'd like to clear this notion first. Now, that sustainable energy practices, they're not the same as renewable energy practices. Now, you can use fossil energy and try to conserve energy so that you don't use too much of the fossil energy. And that would be using a sustainable practice. Then there's the use of renewable energy, which is also a sustainable practice. So that's the air I'd like to clear. But let's move on to my presentation. Now, this is the form of my presentation. I shall do a bit of introduction to what we're going to discuss. We'll look at climate change in Africa. We'll look at energy access, which the first presenter spoke about. We'll look at the potential of renewable energy in Africa. Then we'll look at the main focus of my presentation, energy sovereignty. What does it mean? What is the notion of energy sovereignty? And then we'll look at certain case studies that support the theory of energy sovereignty. So we'll be exploring a pressing global issue that has particularly affected Africa. Most often we think, well, per my conversations with certain people in the industry, the notion is that for us in Africa, We haven't really contributed to carbon emissions as the Western world has, or as Asia has, because they are more into industrialization than we are. But if you think about it, we're more affected than they are. When the gentleman who was asking the question was speaking, he spoke about the dams in Libya and unpredictable rainfall patterns and all of this. This is as a result of climate change. And even though the activities are more, or the activities that produce or add up to greenhouse emissions are more in the Western world or in the Americas or in Asia, we also face the challenges of climate change. So we should try as much as possible to do our best to mitigate climate change and move to practices that um, slow down how our climate is changing. Of course, it's going to change over time, but the rapid rate at which our climate is changing doesn't help us. In the end, we'll lose the earth even before our children are born. So why is it important to have renewable? What's the importance of renewable energy for climate change? The very first thing is the reduction of greenhouse emissions. So if we focus on other sources of energy than what we are currently using, which is the majority of Africa. Majority of Africa uses fossil energy, or even the traditional way of producing energy. If we try as much as possible to focus on renewable sources, we minimize greenhouse emissions, basically. Another way renewable energy is important for climate changes, energy security. By diversifying our energy sources, and I know this is a problem that happens in Nigeria. I am in Ghana. We used to have energy issues, but even with fossil energy, we tried as much as possible to diversify. And so in diversifying, we have reduced the risk at which we have intermittent power supply. So instead of focusing solely on hydro, now we have thermal. Now, although all these fossil fuel energy sources are causing harm to the environment, because I'm in this notion, I'm talking about diversity. Because there's been some diversity, there's some sort of energy security. Now, this is a point where we're looking at diversity with renewable sources, where the source where you're getting your energy hardly depletes or is easily accessible. Energy security. There's also economic opportunities. In recent times, there's been an influx of our youth from Africa going to Europe, going to Asia to find work, because there's a lot of unemployment in Africa. By adopting some of these technologies to Africa, we can create jobs for the African youth. Again, there's the issue of climate resilience. We can, with renewable energy, we can come up with solutions where we empower communities to withstand climate-related disruptions. So regardless of what's the climate change issue might be, the kind of energy sources we might be using would help with those particular issues. Let me give you an example. For example, in Africa, we have a lot of lithium. And lithium is one of the ways where we can store renewable energy, particularly solar energy. It's been known that of course there's a lot of disadvantages when it comes to renewable energy, but there are also a lot of advantages, and those disadvantages can be worked on. One of the biggest challenge with renewable energy is how to store it, and it's not as if we don't have the natural resource that is needed, that is lithium, creating lithium batteries to store these energies. And so that is one way, or one importance of renewable energy to climate change. And then there's environmental stewardship, whereby focusing on renewable energy, we protect the environment. We protect, we preserve the biodiversity of our ecosystem, among other things. Let's look at climate change, the climate change challenges we have in Africa. And I think the first speaker spoke about this. Here in Ghana, well, honestly, one of the major problems would be some of these issues that have been raised on my slides here. The increase in temperature. For some reason, even if it is the rainy season, the temperature, of course, Africa is hot, but nowadays it is getting out of hand. Then there's the issue of unpredictable and irregular rainfall, which sometimes cause droughts and floods. So the time, unfortunately, here in Africa, when it comes to farming practices, we're yet to match up with the Western world. And so some of our farmers, the small scale farmers, focus more on raining patterns to have their plants watered, to have rivers that are close to their farms have enough water to be diverted to their farms. And when there isn't enough rainfall, or the rainfall pattern is disrupted as a result of climate change, we face droughts. In Ghana, the coastal region of Kita, Ghana has had to build sea defense walls to prevent the rising sea levels from overtaking towns. And it's quite disturbing. I'm sure it's not just happening here in Ghana, it's happening all over the world, all over Africa generally. There's been increased frequency and intensity of cyclones and hurricanes and rainstorms all over Africa. Even when it comes to the expansion of the desert areas, places that naturally would have oases or some kind of plant life around the deserts area, because of climate change, has started taking over these life forms, or these plants, or these forests. And then there's also reduced water for drinking, agriculture, and then even industry. We have examples in Sudan and some parts of Ethiopia. We can also talk about energy access in Africa. Besides climate change, let's talk about, because we're looking at energy sovereignty. I just want to take us through the various ideas till we get to energy sovereignty. So, like the previous speaker said, about 50%, 57% of Africa's population lack access to electricity. Not energy, but electricity. The electricity that turns lights on. And that is quite disturbing, because we can't move forward as a continent without having some kind of advanced form of energy. Even with the access to electricity, those who have access to electricity, there's even discrepancies or disparities in the access, where you would have urban areas having more electricity access than rural areas, and it makes it difficult for developments to be achieved. There's also intermittent supply. I know there's a major problem in Nigeria. In some parts of Ghana, it is a problem. And then the high reliance on traditional fuels. There are still people who go around collecting firewood to cook in this age and time. It's quite disappointing. For Africa, I think this is a point where we can lead the charge when it comes to renewable energy. Lead the charge in the sense that, yes, of course, the Western worlds are the ones with the technology, but we can still adopt some of these technologies and lead and become the global phase of renewable energy in the world. Because unlike them, we have almost all the resources when it comes to renewable energy. And I think the speaker before me made mention of some of these energy sources. We have solar here in Africa. The sun shines all year round. It's not like up there where they have winter, they have autumn. No, no, no. Here, the sun is up throughout, and we can take advantage of that. There are parts of a continent where wind can be tapped as an energy source and used as an energy source. Africa has numerous rivers and water bodies that can be harnessed for hydropower. Here in Ghana, we're doing that. And I know that other African countries that are also doing that. There's also biomass using natural resources like for agricultural resources and forestry resources to produce energy. Using organic waste, biogas, to converting these organic waste into biogas for electricity generation. There's ocean or what um sorry there's ocean energy can also be derived from the ocean. We coastal regions can give opportunities for tapping into the ocean for energy. This is known as tidal and wave power. This is something that is currently being explored in South Africa. And these are the vast opportunities we have when it comes to renewable energy. Now to the main subject of my discussion, energy sovereignty. Now, when we say energy sovereignty, what do we mean by energy sovereignty? This is the principle that nations have the inherent right and authority to determine their own energy policies and sources, free from external interference or coherence. And it encompasses the ability of a nation to control, manage, and benefits from its energy resources in a manner that aligns with its national interest, economic development goals, and then environmental objectives. One will ask, how is this important to Africa? First of all, if Africa is energy sovereign, it helps the continent itself because we harness our own energy resources. And like I said earlier, when it comes to renewable energy sources, Africa has the most compared to anywhere in the world. And so we could be leading the world, we could be the global phase of energy where every country takes advantage of the natural resources they have, besides fossil energy, of course, the natural resources they have to produce energy for themselves. In doing this, it leads to the second point. We can increase energy access and inclusion so that instead of focusing on drilling oil, instead of focusing on getting gas to power our plants, we're using wind, we're using solar, we're using biomass. And these are things that are recurrent. When it even comes to biogas, these are the waste we have created. So instead of just throwing away the organic waste and leaving it to cause problems for the environment, we're recycling the waste that we have created to create energy for our countries. And it helps us gain more access or grants more access when it comes to energy access or inclusion in our countries. We're looking at, say, communities having their own biogas terminals or generators to produce energies for them. So, say a community like okay, I'm more in Kumasi, so a suburb of Kumasi, like say Ayedea, say, if the organic waste that are collected from within the community, treated and used to produce energy for the community, that's a sustainable plan. There's also resilience and security. Energy sovereignty enhances energy security by reducing the vulnerability to global energy markets. So we don't necessarily rely on how oil prices have inflated globally, or how gas prices have inflated globally, because our sources of energy are from within us. And so we have a stable energy supply that is crucial to national security and development. Energy sustainability, which is one of the major things we also have to look at. Now, African countries can shape their energy policies to align with sustainability goals, reduce greenhouse emissions, and protect their natural environments. We can look at Ethiopia as a very good example. Ethiopia has tried focusing on hydropower and thermal energies that contributes to the country's own energy sovereignty. So they are the ones producing the energy they are making. They are not relying on any external body to provide them with the oil or to provide them with the gas. So if those resources are not available, the resources are they use for the generation of their energy is available within their own countries. Another issue that can rise from the importance of energy sovereignty to Africa is job creation, which is a major problem here in Africa. So we can create jobs, we can have the transfer of technology. The technology is out there on how to use biogas, on how to use biomass, on how to use solar energy. Like the previous speaker said, that there have been tested prototypes or projects that are being used all over the world, even in Africa and Nigeria. They have several, or they have solar projects that allows them to use solar energy in their homes. I'd like to draw attention to a few case studies in Africa, African countries that are enjoying some sort of energy sovereignty because they are using renewable energy. The previous speaker made mention of Lake Takana wind power in Kenya. This project started somewhere in 2018, and it produces 310 megawatts of power. These are some of the ways that we can improve energy sovereignty in Africa. In Morocco, we have the Noor solar plants or solar complex that produces 580 megawatts of power to support Morocco's energy supply. The point of my presentation basically is that as Africans, we can control what happens on our continent, particularly with regards to clean energy and climate change, because the two are somewhat related. It will be better that we take charge of how we generate energy because we have the resources, and which will in turn affect climate change all over the world. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Henry Adams. The session is very awesome.
Yeah, I'm open to questions if there are any.
And the floor is open for questions from the audience.
Yeah, I think Ume has his hand up. I'd like to hear you, please.
All right. Good evening. Thank you for your class. I think I like the idea of your class talking about energy sovereignty, if I'm correct, and especially in Africa. And I think I like the idea because just like a lot of a lot the Western world and some other places, maybe in Europe or in Asia, there's always this coming together, this unity when it comes to whatever development they are trying to bring in, whatever they are trying to build. I think Africa should do this. I know they might be doing it, but I think it should yield a better result. But where my question is coming from is this sovereignty Africa coming together to, is it the whole nation or is it per part, let me say Eastern Africa, because Western Africa, Northern and Southern. I think because we have several resources on different parts in Africa. We have several of these renewable resources. There are countries that are located by the ocean. There are those that are not. There are those that are very hot, or they are like desert area. What do you think might be the best ways to harness these different sources of renewable and sustainable energy in terms of Africa coming together? That's just
Okay. Thank you very much for your question. It's a very brilliant question. I think there are two ways we can look at this. First of all, individual countries can harness the particular source of or the renewable energy source that is available to them. Now, how we can work together as a continent is that obviously perhaps if it is solar energy that Ghana is using, the possibility that Nigeria might be susceptible to that uh, source of energy is also high. And so that's technology transfer that we should be willing to share the knowledge. So we can collaborate when it comes to the technology, the sharing of the knowledge. So Morocco has done it. They should be willing to share the technology with Ghana if Ghana wants to go into solar energy. They should be willing to share the energy with Nigeria if Nigeria wants to go into renewable energy. Now, if we go about it that way, I think that'll be the best. So let all individual countries focus on whatever renewable source that is available to them. But obviously, because it is available, the possibility of these renewable sources being repeated in several countries, we can share the technology. We can share the technology. It can be, and most of these things are driven by political willpower. So each country should be a check on the other. That is why we have organizations like ECOWAS and AU, sorry. So these organizations, these international bodies should be a check on these individual countries to ensure that these are the things they are seeing too. Thank you.
all right. Thank you very much.
Thanks for the question. Let's hear from Justina. I thought she's asking questions. She raised her hand earlier. Hello, Justina, are you there? Hello?
Yeah, hello, I'm here. It was a mistake, sorry.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. I would like to welcome the third presenter, in the person of Mr. Samuel. Mr. Samuel Egbevure is a Nigerian registered electrical engineer, which had his first degree at one of the prestigious Nigerian University of Technology, Federal University of Technology, Kutoweri. He's an energy expert with strong background in power generation, and he has been a member of Nigerian Society of Engineers, Nigerian Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineering, and also Nigerian Institute of Power Engineering. So it is our honor to welcome Engineer Samuel Egbevure to the call.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for that warm welcome. So can you please go ahead to present the slide for me?
Yes, you can go on with the presentation.
Yeah, I thought you are presenting the slide from your end. Are you? Hello, are you presenting the slide from your end? I thought you were going to do that.
No.
Oh. Let me see. I have to log in back with my PC because I'm using my phone at the moment. Just a minute, please. I have
Okay,
to
no
log
problem.
in.
Problem, engineer.
All right. Good evening once again. I hope at this point or at this moment my screen is displaying. Can you please confirm you can see my screen at this moment?
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right. Thank you so much. So the topics or the theme we're looking at is sustainable energy as a viable tool for climate change mitigation. So thanks to the previous presenters, they've done good work in introducing the concepts and also talking about sustainability, sustainable energy in all, especially the first presenter that did a holistic view on sustainable energy in terms of what it entails and the various forms of sustainable energy and the various policies in place. And also the second speaker too that also touched a lot of aspects on it. So I think they would really help my work at this point. So we're looking at what is climate change. These are my content, or this is the content of my work, very, very short. It should be more of a discussion. I feel it should be more of a discussion than just presenting so many things. So what is climate change? What are the effects? And there was the role of sustainable energy in mitigating climate change. So moving on to the next point. So what is climate change? So climate is not a new term to every one of us. It's something that we already know from the very, very basic level of our education. And it's simply a shift in average weather conditions. So saying that when there is a shift in weather conditions, we term it as climate change. So it's also rapid climate change is caused by humans, that's anthropogenic emission of greenhouse gases and other climatic substances. So what I'm saying here is that it's not it's something that was caused, something that is caused or started by humans. Far back in history is something that humans were doing, but unknown to them, it wasn't so pronounced as at the days or the years back. But as we evolve into the industrial revolution age, we see that the activities of human, which leads to emission of greenhouse gases, started leading or bringing about the climate change we're experiencing. And then when we say greenhouse gases, we are simply saying there are gases that are unwanted, right? So some of these gases consist of CO2, which is the major one. And then we have other ones like methane. We have N2O, that's nitrogen one oxides. And then we have other ones too that also contributes to the greenhouse gas effect we are talking about, which is very poisonous. And then it is primarily the consequences of the widespread use of fossil fuels such as coal, oil, and gas in homes, factories, and transport. So what we're saying here is that when we continue to consume these fossil fuel products, you are burning those products, and hence they are releasing their energy, which brings about the gases we experience, which brings about the gases that are released into the atmosphere. And they are as a result of burning of coal, which can be found in the power generating factories majorly, and then oil too. Also too, that can also apply to the power generating stations, and then partially to the transportation station. So when the crude oil is processed to other products that are used like fuel, NPS and the likes, and then gas too in homes. So they cut across different sectors of every facet of life. So in homes, in factories, as well as in the transportation sector. And then, like I said earlier, we are getting, it is only when we are seeing, it is only because we are seeing the effects and the consequences are becoming pronounced that we get to even know what climate change is and what the effect it has on us. So I will just play a short video clip now to just give us an overview really on what. Please, I don't know if I just started the video, but I don't know if you can listen to it. I know it will be showing at this time, but I don't know if it is audible enough. I would like a confirmation before I continue playing it.
It's not audible, sir.
It's not audible.
Can you put your slide on slideshow and then share your screen with audio? When you want to share, click on audio, share with voice, and I think it will come out.
Okay, thank you, sir. I believe it's displaying now, right? And it's audible.
Not yet playing. I'm not sure if it's just from my end.
It's not playing from my hand.
Sorry, you said it's not audible at your end.
It's not playing.
Yes, it's not even playing here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. Maybe. Okay, let me just speak to what the video is saying anyway. It was basically talking about climate change and all and the various aspects it cuts across. So first of all, it talks about the fact that the most gas that is generated from the emission of greenhouse gases versus CO2 itself, as well as others that has lower levels. And then it talks about the fact that the climate change itself affects our climate, affects weather, affects humans, and it affects food, and so on and so forth. And then he now talks about some measures to be put in place to see how those effects can be reduced. So I will just go back to my slides and continue with the presentation. So I'm back to my slide and I'm putting it on slideshow now. So, looking at the effects of climate change, we have two basic effects, or two major effects really, which of course there are negative effects. So we have effects on our environment, and then the effects on the humans, which the video itself was trying to talk about. So when it talks about impacts on the environment, we have increased frequency of extreme weather, increased frequency of extreme weather conditions, such as heat waves, droughts, and floods, and then rapid melting of glaciers and ice sheets, leading to sea level rise. So there are several things that have happened even in recent time. One of the recent one I will just talk about briefly is the fact that the increased frequency of extreme weather events is causing a lot of issues. For instance, there was a case study. There was an event that happened recently in Morocco, that's in Africa. I think it happened just on the 8th of September. We read about it, that there was an earthquake in Morocco, and it was very, very severe. And during the earthquake, about 2,000 people lost their life on the spot, and so many casualties too were recorded. So those are some of the effects. So it causes earthquakes and then droughts in places like East Africa, whereby they suffer a lot of droughts. It's really affecting the environment and thereby affecting humans. And then to floods associated with the weather events that I talked about, and also with sea level rise. So it's creating floods. I think sometime in last year, there was massive floods in some parts of Nigeria that really displaced the homes of some persons. So these are negative impacts that we wouldn't like to continue to see. We will not want them to continue to be in existence because as it stands, Africa has a temperature rise of about 1.33 degrees Celsius. And research has shown that if it grows beyond that, probably getting close to 1.5 degrees Celsius, those events would even be doubled. And, these consequences will be severe. So not to talk about food insecurity that it will cause, and a lot of things. So those are the effects of climate change. So I'll be going on to the role of sustainable energy in mitigating climate change. So when we talk about sustainable energy, we are simply saying that energy sources that are free, energy sources that can be renewed, that are clean and also can be renewed. So it's simply saying renewable energy sources. And some of those sustainable energy sources are basically solar energy from solar panels, that is from sun. And then we have biomass. We also have wind energy, and then we have hydropower. And then there's also nuclear power, and then we also have fuel cells, which is a new aspect, a new area of research. And then we also have fuel cells, and then the aspect of battery storage coming in, that's BSS, battery storage systems, so that can store the energy from all these sources, so that when they are not available at any point in time, the energy from the battery can supply the energy demand at that point in time. So then we have so looking at renewable energy generation in Africa, this is more like a chart showing present construction and capacity of African renewable energy projects. So as we can see here, Southern Africa is taking the lead. At the moment, they have produced over 24,000 megawatts. They have installed capacity of over 24,000 megawatts of renewable energy generation. Then they have up to 10,000 megawatts that is under construction. That's very, very impressive. And then followed by East Africa, the likes of Egypt. They are doing massively well too in terms of speeding up their renewable energy production using solar, and then also using wind energy power. And then come next, or followed next, is North Africa, the likes of Morocco and Algeria too. They are also trying to catch up with Southern Africa as well as Tunisia. So they have presently 13,000 megawatts installed, and then they have about 100 megawatts of installed capacity of construction that are under progress. And then come after that is West Africa. And then in West Africa, we can see about 6,000 plus megawatts generation. So the likes of Ghana, like my colleagues have talked about, they are doing well. And then other neighboring West African countries too, also doing great. To see how that there's something they call this West African power pool. It is what is actually helping to boost the renewable energy projects in West Africa itself, West African power pool. So is just a medium whereby West Africa countries come together, or rather they are meshed together to see how they can, how they can improve the power access, that's energy access, as well as energy affordability to, more like reduce energy poverty, and then increase energy affordability, reliability, and stability. So at the moment, we have under construction, we have 5,000 plus megawatts renewable energy. So here in Nigeria, we have the likes of the Zungeru hydropower plant that's in Taraba State, and they also have another one too that is ongoing in Makurdi, a very big hydropower plant too that are under construction. And then we have other ones too, like so Egbin. Many of us will know about Egbin, which is the largest thermal generating power station in Nigeria, has already signed a memorandum to produce renewable energy to serve its customers, and it has been signed, and hopefully that would commence commence by next year. So it is called the Egbin Phase 2, and then we also have other ones too within Ogun State and also in Lagos State. A lot of renewable energy companies are already, and startups are already doing great. We have the likes of NG Energy Assets that is already, supplying a lot of renewable energy in the northern part of Nigeria. And then we have Osk Powers Limited also doing great. And then we also have the likes of Shell, energy giants like Shell.
There's a little network failure from Engineer Samson. Let's give him like 5 minutes to set back. Hello, everyone.
Sorry, the network logged me out. Please, can you kindly make me a co-host so I can be able to share my screen again?
Okay. Okay, please kindly make engineer Sam a co-host so that I can share his screen. Hello. Hello.
I can hear you.
K is now the chief host. Let him make you a co-host so that you can start sharing your screen.
Sorry, how am I supposed to do that?
You can just click on my name and then you make me a co-host.
Hello. Okay.
It's done.
Can go on.
Because I'm not seeing the sharing screen facility on mine.
Not a co-host, engineer Sam.
Okay, all right, I've seen it now. So trying to share my slide again. Oh, please, is it displaying now?
Not yet, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Okay, not to waste too much of your time, please. I'm still trying to figure it out there. I was talking about the development of renewable energy itself, and then other measures that have been put in place at the moment. We have that's deployment of electric vehicles, and then we also have increase in energy efficiency itself. And then in terms of that increase in energy efficiency, I'm actually going to talk about them, each of them. And then to another one is increasing energy production and then decreasing energy consumption. So I had charts to show for all these things, but I'll quickly just talk about the role of electric vehicles itself. So I'm presently carrying out a project research on electric vehicles as one of the means to, reducing the greenhouse gas effects that are presently in existence in Nigeria. And then for electric vehicles, we see it as a very viable means or viable tool to reducing the CO2 emissions, because presently at the moment, research shows that about 40% of about 36% of the CO2 emissions comes from the transportation sector, and then about 40% comes from buildings itself. So for the transportation sectors, if we can be able to reduce the emissions that are generated from transport, daily movement here and there, it would really help to reducing the effect of climate change in our environment. So for electric vehicle, I know one of the challenges we're having is probably the cost itself. So, but it's an area that research is ongoing at the moment to see how the costs can be, how that can be tackled. So government policies and other initiatives can help to achieving that, such as if presently at the moment we have Innocent Power, Innocent Limited, yeah, that is already into vehicle production, right? They are also tilting towards production of electric vehicles. And then there's also another one to I learned to within the East, I think within that Anambra State, as is that is already competing with Innocent. So that's to tell you that local products are already, showing interest into this viable tool to really see how to reduce CO2 emissions. And then, so if governments can really help to increase, can help to, to finance this local content, it would help them a lot. And also if there will be things like international trade and the international financing, and even though the local contents are doing great, too, that cannot really solve it. We still need help, more support from those from, the foreign companies that are already producing it in mass. So if there are incentives put in place to see that these companies, reduces their manufacturing costs and also in the importation costs too, it would help a lot to see that electric vehicles come in more into the West African part and, Nigerian and the like. And therefore, when electric, so I also talked about presently there was a news that went forth that CNG, that's compressed natural gas, is one very good source of energy on powering vehicles. So I think a lot research is still ongoing on that, but if it becomes a policy that it is being put in place, it's going to reduce the reliance on fossil fuel, like the fuel itself, which is consumer and diesel. So, and then not to talk about what energy giants are doing, like Shell and the others, whereby they are producing more of renewable energy products relating to electric vehicles and the likes, and then reducing their carbon intensity products too. So then talking about the next point, which is that's energy efficiency, increase in energy efficiency. That's to say, so there's something called net zero energy buildings. So net zero energy buildings is a new area of research presently. What it means is that the building itself, net zero energy building. So what it means is that the building will be able to produce all the energy. So both the energy it would consume, it will be self-generated by the building itself. So that's to tell you that the building would have islanded renewable energy sources. So though it can still be connected, it can still be grid connected, but majorly, the major part of it is that it is able to, produce as much as it is consuming. That's why it's called net zero energy buildings. So there is a project presently that is ongoing in Abuja. That's the African Development Bank. It is a net zero energy efficiency building itself. And others too are also taking place too in other parts of the country, specifically in the north. And what that area of research does is that, like I said earlier, buildings itself contributes to 40% CO2 emissions globally. So if buildings if buildings become much more efficient in terms of their energy consumption and their energy efficiency, it will cut CO2 emissions drastically. So then we also have another one too that I talked about, that's increase in energy production and then decrease in energy consumption. So if we must encourage CO2, if we must encourage sustainable energy to be a viable tool to combat climate change, then we must see how to decrease energy consumption drastically. Now, where is energy consumption coming most from? It's coming mostly from the industrial part itself. So we have a lot of energy intense buildings and medium energy intense buildings. So if buildings and industries that consumes large amounts of energy, and by so doing, because the more they are consuming the energy, the more they are releasing CO2 emissions to the atmosphere. So if there can be a much more efficient practices to see that they consume less energy and still be able to carry out their daily task, it would help a lot. And then increasing energy generation is just simply increasing renewable energy generation. So and so on. And then when you look at the energy, when you look at increasing energy generation, and then you look at how it can really have a greater push in terms of the aspects where CO2 emissions are coming out from the most, which are energy, manufacturing industries, and the like mega companies that produce CO2. There is something they call that's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So I talked about net zero energy buildings earlier. So what net zero energy buildings can also do again too is that it would also be interfaced with control methodologies, and then it will have embedded intelligence, whereby it will be able to balance the load requirements at any given time, and then be able to balance the schedules of their operations. So for such kind of buildings, though they can stand alone, but some might still be interconnected with the grid, right? So, but if control methodologies is put in place, it would help to reduce their reliance on the grid. By so doing, it's going to make them much more net zero and also much more energy efficient. So these are just the points I was able to look at in terms of this topic itself, in terms of this theme. So I will be ending my presentation at this point here, and I would ask for questions. I'm sorry that I couldn't project the slide again, please, because I switched over to my phone. Yeah.
Thanks for the excellent presentation.
All right.
The floor is now open for question and answer. Let's hear from our audience. Hello, everyone. The floor is still open for question.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
All right. My name is Benson. Thanks, Samuel, for your presentation. Despite the network challenges, I think you're still able to pull through. So that's very good. Well done. I wanted to ask if you have, some idea around industries that are currently, or companies that are currently supporting renewable energy that you would like to encourage or emphasize for people to see how to connect into those opportunities, because of course government cannot do everything, so the private sector can actually support this effort if we have a good number of them in this space. If you have a few of them, you could talk about it as well.
Okay, thank you so much for that wonderful question, sir. So there is NG, there are a few of them already, and they are still being encouraged at the moment for them to participate. I mean, private sector participation. So the likes of NG Energy Access is one of the biggest presently in Nigeria, one of the biggest renewable energy company that is into solar power generation. Like they are tackling energy access in the north by producing solar power to meeting energy demand and energy needs. They will have USK power. Then we also have like I said earlier, that's Shell, that use Shell in collaboration with Daystar Power is also one of them. We also have other ones too. Presently, I work with Ikeja Electric, and in Ikeja Electric, we have partnered with some local companies like Enego. So Enerol, whereby they supply a part of our grid, they supply a part of our network with solar power. So we are also seeking a sourcing for more of them too, to see how they can come into our network and supply part of the network with renewable energy sources. And also too, we are also looking at as a company too, which as Sahara as a whole, Sahara Group is already, plans are already in place to see how they can build renewable energy sources. That's why I called it, I like talk about Egbin Phase 2. So Egbin Phase 2 is a project in the Sahara Group that would supply massive, that would produce massive renewable energy from solar and wind. We focused on solar and wind, and so on and so forth. So those are the few I can mention for now, sir.
Okay, thank you. Maybe one more point. I'm aware of a company that was into, developing the solar energy, solar power. And one of the strategies that they adopted was, to get all their staff working in the company to first of all acquire this solar energy at a discounted rate. And they took further steps to say, any of the staff that is able to bring a customer that buys into the solar energy also gets some kind of reward. It's Ikeja Energy or any of these companies that you mentioned, considering similar or some of this kind of strategy that help to boost the market. If you know, could you share with us?
Okay, I thought you were making a point or a contribution, because you seem to have started from the aspect of a contribution. So I didn't get the question very well.
Yes, it's more of a contribution, but I'm also asking at the end of it if Ikeja Energy is considering those kind of opportunities to grow the market.
Yes, presently I happen to do an analysis for Ikeja Electric presently from one of the business units, that is also the business units, to identify power gap, energy gap. And in that analysis, I did the present allocation of power to the business units and the gap that exists and the possibility of IPPs that can come in. So at the moment, apart from the NRO that we have signed memorandum with, there's also up to like 2 more that I'm aware of that we signed that memorandum with. So yes, the company as a whole, we are looking at really diversifying our energy sources and going green. So yes, it's something that we are striving for. So there is already awareness on that aspect. So people are aware. So but it's not as if they make it known to staff, like you talked about, whereby they give incentives to them and all that, like to encourage, but it's something that is just at the management level, whereby they source for those vendors and then they introduce them into the network. So at the management level, they are looking into it seriously. But I think for lower levels, it's something that they don't promote. They do not promote it. So that's my response on that, sir.
That is very good contribution.
Okay, sir.
So, Engineer Sam, please allow Mr. Malik to ask his question.
Okay, please go ahead, sir.
Unmute him so that I can ask his question. Unmute Mr. Malik.
Okay. All right, I've asked you to unmute.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello?
Please.
Can you hear me?
Go ahead. Yes, sir.
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead with your question.
All right. Good evening. Great presentation from you, Engineer Samuel, despite the technical difficulties. I don't really have a question. It's more of clarification. So when you were talking about the net zero buildings, I had some network issues. I didn't really get that part. So can you just quickly summarize on that part, on the net zero buildings?
Okay. All right. So net zero building, net zero energy building, NZEB, is a new area of research, like I talked about, only to tackle the aspect. Can you mute your mic, please, so others can hear clearly? So as to
Sorry.
tackle the aspect of CO2 emissions from the building sector. So what it means is a building itself would be, it's just simply, the building will be able to produce as much as what it will consume. So instead of fully relying on the grid, it should be able to produce as much as it will consume in all its operations. So it can cut across energy intense industries and medium intense industries, or even as well as domestic buildings that we stay in. So for energy intense buildings, solar alone may not be able to do that. So of course, they will need things like biomass energy as well as wind energy to augment it. So but it's not just that they are producing the energy alone they would need, but also they'll be integrated with control methodologies whereby they will become much more energy intelligent. They're embedded with energy intelligence whereby it will schedule their operations to balance the demand, the low demand at any given time. So what it simply means is, if, for instance, solar is not available at any point in time, and maybe, okay, let me say solar is available, but it's not able to meet the demand at that point, to meet their operations at that time. So wind would also come in to augment it. And then if wind is not fully available, something like biomass too can also be integrated with it to also augment it. So if solar alone can do it, fine. So it's more like just scheduling the operations to see that they are able to reduce their reliance on grid. Yes. So, and then to, like I talked about, the African Development Bank, there are buildings these days that are being built whereby the walls will be made of glasses. There's a new type of solar panel. I think it's called shape. I can't really get the name, but Pyrovites. One new type of solar panel, right? That you don't need to install it on the roof again, but it can be installed on walls, on buildings. So those ones attract solar. Every part of the building, both the walls, the windows itself, they are solar, made of solar panels. They have cells in them that captures the solar energy and thereby contributing to the energy demands of the building itself. Yeah, so that is already taking place. I read about a university, I can't remember the country now, abroad, that it has completely turned to a net zero energy building. Every facility, every department in that building, in that university, is completely built with this net zero energy buildings initiative that I talked about. And then if African Development Bank is doing it, I'm also hoping that other bigger buildings like the Central Bank of Nigeria, internal, what do you call it, customs, and other bigger buildings like tax and the likes can also key it into that. Even bigger hotels like the Transcorp, eating and the likes can also key into that. Is really a very viable area of research that is presently it has limited research at the moment within West Africa, but is cutting across a lot of places abroad, and the likes, and some parts of West Africa too that I know about, Tanzania and the likes too. So that's it. Thanks.
Hello. So at the absence of question, let's call the workshop a day so that the other people can start their own. Thanks for everyone.
All right, thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I'm really once again sorry I couldn't project the.
Thanks, Virginia.
All right.